I am not good with economy of words, and I've been told to make this in 3 to 4 minutes, so boom, let's go. I had been church shopping for a couple of years when I was sitting in the pew of another church in Dallas, and for the second time, God clearly spoke to me. The first time is a whole nother lesson, but the second time, he said to me, I want you to go to First Baptist downtown. And I said, I don't know where that is. And he said, I don't care. And I said, I don't know anyone there. And he goes, mm-hmm. So knowing how faithful the Lord had been to me during my breast cancer journey in 2013, when I was a single working mom commuting from Fort Worth to Dallas, raising 12-year-old twin girls, 6 months into a brand new job, selling my home, whole bunch going on, losing my hair, you name it, 3 surgeries, all of that in 9 months with no family in town, Jesus really was my true companion. And so when God said, go downtown, I said, you got it. And I could not wait for Sunday to come because I knew how faithful he had been to me and how close we had grown over the years. So I walked in and I went to the visitor parking, which is like Disney World for churchgoers. Everybody has on a matching vest. I got a bag. I wasn't expecting a bag. And then I walked in the front door and it took my breath away. Not the size of the church. I knew it was big. But what took my breath away was the fact that I felt like this was the closest to heaven I had ever been. There were so many people from so many walks of life, so much diversity, and everyone wanted to be here. So then I get to the worship center and they put me on the front row. Because even though I do not have ADHD, I do act like I have ADHD. And so God knew if he was going to get to me, I needed to be paying attention. And I fell in love with Pastor Jeffrey's teaching because it was good old-fashioned Bible teaching. And you know how I said I didn't know anybody? I looked up, and there in the choir was Wendy Carter Hunter, who put me on the board for the American Cancer Society after my first cancer. I've had 2. Then I come here, and I see Suzanne. Where is Suzanne? She sat behind me in 7th grade science class. So I really did know people. Well, because this church does such a good job of saying, okay, well, you want to join? That's great. Let me ask you a couple of questions. Because I decided by January, this was it. I was home. They said, do you believe that Jesus died on the cross for your sins and is your sin, blah, 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 blah. And I said, yes. And they said, have you been baptized? And I go, sorta. And Sean said, I'm going to need a little bit more clarification on that. And I said, well, I grew up in the Presbyterian church, and I was born and raised in Memphis, but by 6th grade, I was in Dallas, and I went through confirmation, only to learn for the first time I had never been baptized. So I said to my mother, I said, what were you thinking? She goes, it's a long story. I go, I don't have time for it now. I go, but I'm getting baptized in April, and I want you to come from Memphis. My dad had passed, so she came, 87 years old. My twins, 24, came in from McKinney. Brad was there. And I cried through the entire process because I was so excited to publicly profess my love for Jesus. And I was so excited to be at First Baptist. Also, I knew I had to find a Sunday school because Sean told me I did. And I needed to be part of a community group because that's what works best statistically. So I came here and I kept coming here. And then finally, Suzanne was like, just join. And I was like, okay, fine. And so I joined. Well, about 7 months ago, I asked God, why in the world did you bring me all the way downtown? There are a jillion churches in my neighborhood. Why downtown? And he was radio silent. And I said, okay. Well, this past May 21st, I had developed a hernia from my second cancer, which was unrelated to my breast cancer. That was a carcinoma. This was a sarcoma. It was a gastrointestinal stromal tumor the size of a racquetball, and they took 20% of my stomach out through my belly button to get rid of it. I ended up at MD Anderson. It was so rare. They were the only people willing not to put me on chemo. Every oncologist in Dallas thought I needed 10 years of chemo, so I would have gone through the pandemic on chemo. Really happy I didn't have to do that. Well, I developed a hernia at the site of the incision. So I was home recovering, and God spoke to me for the 3rd time. And he said, I want you to start a cancer support group. And I said, oh, I'm sure we have one. You do know we're very big. And he said, why don't you check it out? So I grabbed my phone, and I couldn't find one. I know we've had one in the past by someone in this class. Where is she? right there in the back. And so at the time, this time, we didn't have one. Well, I had written a blog when I was going through cancer called Always Wear Lipstick to Chemo. And I had journaled about my relationship with the Lord, and Brad will tell you that's why he fell in love with me, because I wouldn't let him take me out again after our third date until he read all 70 pages. And so I had spoken about my faith, I had written about my faith, but it never occurred to me to do a support group. So I called Jim. I kind of sat on it for a while because I didn't want to get ahead of my skis. And I called Jim, and we had a little Teams meeting, and because I was still working at home after my surgery recovering. He said, well, let me talk to some people, and I'll get back to you. And he said, well, Jeff Adams wants to talk to you. So Jeff and I spoke about the third week in June, and I had written a business plan, and I'd sent it to him, and I was all prepared for the call, and he asked me a lot of real serious questions, as he should. He vetted me. And then he said, well, can you start in September? And I went, oh, okay. And he goes, well, everything's going to print in July. And I go, oh, well, I get that because I'm in marketing and communications. I understand a deadline, especially a print deadline. So yes, I will start in September. Well, I ordered all these books off Amazon, trying to find just the right book to teach. And the one that kept getting delayed is the one that was just the right book to teach. And it's called Confronting Cancer with Faith. This is written by a woman who I'm now friends with. She lives in Birmingham, Alabama. She was an oncology research nurse. She developed breast cancer, and she wrote this book, are you ready? For patients, survivors, and caregivers. And I had said to Jeff, I want all three to be welcome in this group, because if it's just patients, we're all going to sit around and talk about how bad we feel. And survivors sometimes have not really come to grasp with why they walked through this journey. And caregivers really go through a lot when they're watching someone they love suffer. And I know that well because a year and a half into my marriage to Brad, he had a spinal cord infarction, which is a stroke in his spinal cord. And that's why he walks with a cane and has no use of his left leg. So I've been a patient, I've been a survivor, and I've been a caregiver. And I think we can all learn something from each other. So on September 9th at 6:30 to 8, it'll be the second Tuesday of every month, we're going to gather here. We're going to work the book. We're going to be in small group. We're going to be in prayer. And because I'm in marketing and communications, and I really enjoy writing emails and blogs and doing graphics and things like that, I hope to keep the group alive the 3 weeks that we're not meeting here. Because one day when I retire, hopefully we'll be able to meet more than once a month. I thought I was about to retire because they sold my bank, but I just found out Friday that I am actually going to be able to keep my job. So that's been a whole nother thing. And I will just end on this one note. I said to God, okay, God, it's really going to be hard for me. I'm happy to do the group, but you do understand my life is going really well. Like, I have a great marriage, a great job, the kids are settled. I mean, I'm not even sure I remember what it's like to go through this. I've got to be able to get back into that state of mind. And he said, great, here's a hernia. By the way, after that, you're getting mono. And on top of that, for 6 weeks, you're not going to know if you have a job or not. So there's some suffering for you to marinate in. So suffering is close to my heart, but I think that if we can not waste our suffering, but find the significance in suffering and see Jesus through the process, it can really be a game changer. There is a landing page for this, and hopefully, Sylvia, we can put that in our next email. So if you will forward that, find me on Facebook, make friends with me, because I'm sharing things on Facebook as well as the registration link. If you are walking with a cancer patient, you do not have to be related to them, but you are supporting them. You are welcome. All are welcome. I'm letting people know you don't have to be a member of this church. You don't have to be a member of a church at all. I don't care if you do or do not believe in Jesus. We're talking about Jesus, but I'm hoping this may be an opportunity for those who are going through a hard time to find Jesus in the mess. So I'm very happy to be at this church. To me, this is Disney World for Christians. I mean, this is the happiest place on earth. And I have never felt more a part of a congregation and a Sunday school than I have at First Baptist Dallas, and especially Acts 2:42. So thank you for loving me. I hope I love you as well as you love me.